we're going to call the meeting to order. I would ask you to turn your phones to silent or vibrate, and then let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Chris Reinhardt is going to take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Here.
Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here. Need a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes. Okay, thank you. I think since this is a special meeting, I'm going to deviate the identification of citizens who want to comment on an item on the agenda. I have several of these little slips. If anybody wants to make a comment or come up to the podium, please fill one of those out and hand it to Chris or me, and we'll be sure to get up and take your time. I'd like to set out kind of the procedure for tonight. This is a meeting for the public to learn about the RFP and to provide information to the council. The RFP was part of the original council packet back in June, and the responses were scored and evaluated by our internal staff. The council tabled the action at the last formal council meeting, so that's why it's on the agenda tonight in its entirety. We need to bring it back up and take care of that item that was tabled on number 2. So to start tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask each one of the representatives from the 2 companies to step up and use their microphone and share some information about their companies, and they can share anything they want. We want them to be positive. This is to be a learning experience for city residents. After they have completed their, I'll give you 8 to 10 minutes as a max, and then we'll go into, I'll invite the city administrator to make a few comments because there is some confusion. And then we'll have the people who have signed up come up to the mic, and I'll call your name out and ask you to come up to the microphone and you can make your comments. After we've completed that, then we'll have some questions from our council, and they have both personal questions as well as just from the number of people who have called them or written to them. After that's completed, then we'll look at the item that's tabled and take whatever action the council wants to. And as we say on our agenda, any item on the agenda is subject to discussion and or action. So that's the layout. We're going to start and begin tonight. I'm going to ask that our guest from out of town, Mr. Ottumwa from Sparta Company, would start off and give us a few minutes of information about your company.
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council, staff, and citizens here today. I was telling the Mayor, I've been to a lot of meetings. I've never been to a trash City Hall forum. This is nice. I like this. It really is. You have these town meetings, but how often do we get to talk about something you use every day in trash service? I'm giving my own philosophy on trash service. I've been in this industry for 30 years. And, when I started this business, I'm a small businessman. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I started collecting with, 1-2 trucks. And my first company grew into the largest in the state of Iowa. After a successful transition, that company, I got back into this business again and started serving with nothing. We're now the most rapidly growing solid waste recycling collection companies in the state. And that's because I think we do things right. I think there's a need for what we do. But, make no mistake about it, I'm a locally owned business here in Iowa. Okay, I'm from Iowa, from central Iowa. I made many a trip down here in high school playing the Bulldogs, and it was always tough coming down here. And every time we came down here, and I went to Lincoln High School, I didn't go to one of those West Side ones, and even though I could have went to Dallas being a good Catholic boy. It was always, I liked it down here because these people, you guys are really understand what it means to work hard and what it takes to be successful. And I know when I came down here, we were always willing to, Ottumwa put their best up for us. And I see that in the time I've spent down here, exploring more what's going on. You expect the best and you should get the best and you fight for the best. And in Sparta, that's kind of what we do. And I saw a lot of things here in our proposal that I explained to the staff that I thought was really, could help upgrade what's going on here. Automated collection. My company's pioneered automated collection in the state of Iowa. When we started it over 20 years ago, no one said it could be done. Oh, there's snow, there's this and that. The automated collection you see today was pioneered by my companies on how you pick up when it's done. I don't believe in rear load collection for most of your trash collection. First of all, it's unsafe. The waste industry is one of the 5 most dangerous industries in the United States because of guys getting on trucks and going back and forth and going across the street. You don't see that, but that happens. And I want my workers to go home at night. I don't want them ever to have a tragedy to make that call to that family, so that person didn't make it. So that's why safety is first in whatever we do. And I think that's throughout our proposal that we put on. I believe that, the recycling that you guys do here is a really good recycling program because it's still sorted to curb. We're up in central Iowa, we went to a commingled system that's failed miserably. You guys are on the cutting edge of still having a recycling program where the product is worth something. Now, can it be better? Absolutely. We did 75,000 homes a week in curbside recycling sorted at the curb. I know what this is. It's a tough, tough job, but you get a really good product in the end, so you're not burdened as a city with high recycling costs because of contamination. We know how to do that. We know how to do the automated collection. More importantly, what I want to do is make the system you have today better. And customer service is really important to us. One of the things we want to do with customer service is integrate the systems we're going to have in our trucks with GPS, with camera systems, so we can track the truck in real time of what's happening. If someone was to call our customer service center and say, I live on North Court Street. I think I see your truck, have been missed. We can find out, well, if the truck's there and maybe route the guy back. This lifetime information is really important because it has to be integrated properly. Also, what that system does, it lets us as residents tell you what's happened and say you were missed. We can log that and find out what's happening on that route, that person is missed, or more importantly, we give it back to decision makers so they can see. We want to be rated, okay? And I want people to know that just because you have a city contract that's any amount of time, we're only as good as your last pickup. And we want to make sure that if someone calls in, we sit there and responsive. Listen, no one's perfect. I know it. You're talking about a city of 10,000 people. You're talking about, at the end of the year, hundreds of thousands of service stops. But if we don't do it right, we want to respond and make sure it's done properly. One other thing on proposal, I think it's different than the other one, is your spring cleanup. The spring cleanups I proposed is, you don't have to bring it anywhere, it's at your curbside. Once a year in the spring, that spring cleanup, those extra items, there'll be a Saturday, you just have that stuff at curbside and we'll pick it up. You don't have to get a pickup, go to a certain place. If you're elderly, you maybe get someone to come bring it there. It's more accessible to everyone in the city, and it's easy for them. Because, not that we'd like to have everyone come, at that point you could almost go to the landfill. But in my mind, and I've done them with cities with, twice the size of Ottumwa, at curbside, it works, it's successful, and I think it's a good value-added product. I don't want to take up all my time and get back to Bear City. It's back to talk about trash all
I'll
day.
give you a 1-minute warning for both of you.
Oh, okay. In conclusion, we're excited about the opportunity to come to Ottumwa for, I believe, the things we can do to help upgrade. And also, one of the things that my proposal you do is, I'm part of Keep Iowa Beautiful. I'm a charter board member. I want to bring the principles of Keep Iowa Beautiful and Hometown Pride to Ottumwa to revitalize what you guys doing. I think this town's going in a really good direction, and I want to be part of it. And with Keep Iowa Beautiful, I want to bring the resources here to make sure this, city is, the shining city that I see when I drive through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lewis, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and citizens. We have Bridge City Sanitation. We acquired the business in 2009. Have been serving the industry since the last contract that started in 2011, so we're 9.5 years into the program serving the residential services of Ottumwa. And we appreciate that opportunity that we've been given, and we sincerely want to continue our service, continue growing our service, and adapting for the city of Ottumwa. So that's kind of our background into the trash service. Related to this proposal specifically, when we met with the evaluation committee, I think there's several things that are in this proposal that we are intending and planning and sincerely giving assurances that these things will be properly addressed. First item is our equipment. And starting today with the new truck that you've seen outside, again, we fully agree that the automated service is the best service to do. We started with the automated service in our initial go-through 10 years ago with only one rear load truck. So we fully intend to get back to the automated service for the trash because we agree that is the safest and most efficient way of picking up the trash. So that's one item with the truck that's outside. Right now, that would be added to get a full fleet of 4 automated trucks to serve the 4 routes that we serve Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Of course, there's a few locations that you cannot serve with an automated truck that we know by serving Ottumwa that we have to deal with those items with an additional rear load truck. So that by itself will improve the service areas, some of the complaints that we've addressed in the past year. All these vehicles will be, of course, cleaned and maintained regularly. Also with the new contract, the ability to increase our wages, to hire, train, retain the employees that we rely on every day to do this job. Rain, shine, snow, whatever's out there, these employees are out there picking up your trash and recycling. So also part of the request for proposal is the new start time. So we fully agree to maintain the start time at 6 a.m. so people aren't being woke up at 4. We also agree with the citywide cleanup event. There's talking to staff, there's been differences in whether staff wanted a curbside or whether staff wanted a drop-off zone or whatever. We're willing to work with the staff on whatever they see, and council, whatever they see is the best benefit for the Ottumwa residents. So we're not set in stone one way or another. We're offering a cleanup event that will satisfy the staff and the residents as efficiently as possible. So our customer communications is another issue. We have in the works a website, a texting system, an additional phone line for increased communications between the residents of Ottumwa and our staff to satisfy any of these customer issues, requesting bulky service, those type of things. It'd be just as easy to email that in on a service or text in, I got a couch to pick up and get those items on our listing. With that, also, we're planning with the GPS and camera systems. So these will help identify the areas that are having issues and monitor, like the request for proposal said, to log events, and we can continuously monitor, survey, and improve on any service issues and or residential issues that we see out there. Another item is the educational material and communications with the residents as far as promoting the trash and recycling system. So we propose to implement, whether it's service notices and with the water bills, whether it's public service announcements, any implementation procedures at the recycling center or the landfill, the trash service needs to be implemented, we will be able to satisfy those requirements and help the city any way we can to get that information out to the residents and continual training and education, so they know that pop and beer can cartons can't be recycled, for example. The additional thing would be increased communication between city staff and including mayor and council members. If something is not going as indicated, that we need to just sit down, communicate, and fix the issue. That is a constant, ongoing situation that's ever evolving. So that being said, we addressed some of those issues in the evaluation meeting, but we were not able to give a fancy presentation or anything like that. So as you see in front of you, the updated calculations of the pricing. I think the council, has new updated figures related to all those items that were addressed after the initial packet went out. So after the 1% local preference per the code, the corrected figures as shown represent Bridge City Sanitation. Yes, sir.
1 minute.
1 minute left, okay. So as stated before, Bridge City Sanitation is locally owned and operated. So the local ownership, we participate in local charities, local events, local leagues, too many to mention, day-to-day involvement in the community. We are here and operating around Ottumwa every day. I just want to make our assurances to the residents of Ottumwa and the council that we're committed to the city. We are committed to working with the staff for the systematic changes that are needed in the program. So, in 2009, when we purchased commercial sanitation, we thought of the name as Bridge City Sanitation to represent ourselves as Ottumwa's local sanitation company. We are not here to grow an empire. We are here to help our hometown. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call on City Administrator Phil Raff to give us some opening comments, and then we'll get to the individual questions, and feel free to bring that on up.
For a point of clarification, Mayor, did you want me to ask any of the questions of both providers at this time?
Why don't you make your opening comment about the clarification on
Yep.
an RFP and a bid, and then we'll go to those questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you heard just a little bit ago here, the reason that we're here, in the mayor's comments initially, due to considerable investment in capital, the city has contracted out solid waste services for some time now. The current contract for solid waste services is nearing its completion, so following best practices for responsible governments, a request for proposal, or RFP, was developed to solicit proposals from entities interested in providing said service. The RFP process differs slightly from the bid process. The bid process is typically used for construction projects such as roads and other infrastructure. The method is typically used when specific parameters such as building materials or design standards are outlined in the delivery of the specified contract. Under this type of process, the contract is awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. In the city of Ottumwa, preference is given to a local contractor if their bid is within 1% of the lowest responsible bid. Please note, this does not lower the contract price, but rather allows the city council to offer the contract to the local vendor within that reasonable margin. Unlike the bid process, the request for proposals outlines a general scope of services to be performed. It may also include such items as minimal qualifications, experience, alternative or additional services, and the proposed price or fee schedule. Under the RFP model, the cost to provide the service is but one of several factors that can be used to determine which proposal is the best. Other factors which can be used to determine the successful proposer include the experience and expertise of the proposer's involvement in service and assignments of similar scope and complexity, the proposer's ability and availability to provide ongoing services, references, and/or their prior history. There's been a lot of discussion in the community and the social media regarding the pricing structure and who offered the lower price. To clarify, over the 10-year life of the contract, Sparta Waste Services proposed a lower offer by an estimated $158,000. While the Bridge City Sanitation contract is within 1% of the Sparta offer, the city did not utilize the bid process for this contract. As such, the cost of the contract was only one of the criteria evaluated in the original score. Thank you.
Then would you begin with the list of questions that you staff proposed this morning, and then we'll get to the individual citizens'
Certainly.
comments.
Okay. And so for this proposal, we were going to have each of you respond to these questions, and we'll go one at a time. So we started with Sparta, so then we'll start with Bridge City Sanitation. You'll answer the question, Sparta will respond, and then Sparta will start off and ping pong back and forth that way. So the first question to Bridge City, and you both answer the same questions, just to be clear. One of the reasons to contract out the sanitation services is to work with an expert in the industry. How do you remain educated on current issues and innovations in the waste industry?
Okay, so like any profession, we first look to experience working in the industry. The additional information we gather is from publications. We have various publications that we constantly get and look over, read, take information from that, and then also material on the internet. So we research that. It's a constant, ever-changing deal. Information on what other cities, other states, what they're doing in relation to processing, whether it's processing recyclables or truck innovations. All that stuff comes from materials of that nature.
Again, how do you remain educated on current issues and innovations in the industry?
It's a great question, and I take it seriously. When I came to this industry about 30 years ago, that was the challenge. And what I did is I went and sought out information. And by that I mean is I educate myself and the company. By doing that, I belong to the largest solid waste recycling association in the world, the National Waste Recycling Association. Not only am I been a member for close to 30 years, I sit and represent the state of Iowa on the Board of Governors. I'm the chairperson for the Board of Governors for the state of Iowa. I've been elected from my peers in the industry, and this is all my peers and competitors, to the board of trustees, where only 11 of us represent the entire industry as far as the National Waste Recycle Association here in the United States. So I'm constantly updated with meetings and seminars that I go to a minimum of 4 times a year. With that also, we sit on different committees. One of the committees I've been sitting on in this association, and when I talk about my peers, I'm talking about, you know, the Los Angeles city, you know, comes in, the Waste Management, the Waste Connections, Republics. We're talking about billion-dollar companies. And we come together and we discuss like recycling programs right now with the contamination. What can we do about that? We've identified why that program, why it happened, why it went backwards, and why today you're in a better situation than these cities that went to commingle because the market for that has went down. Constantly educating myself and my company about what's going on, but being proactive. In the state of Iowa, I sit on the Iowa Environmental Management System. I was appointed by the governor and helped me legislate that piece of legislation to, like your local landfill does, to improve the quality of environmental services in the state. So not only the national level, the state level, I've advocated for good environmental practices for today and tomorrow, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, next question, we'll start with Sparta. One of the main issues raised by citizens has been the inability to contact live staff to answer questions or report concerns. Please provide examples of how you would remedy this issue moving forward.
Well, number one, we have to know what our people are doing and implement the systems I put in RFP of GPS and tracking, but then you have a call-in center. And, you know, the call-in center generally is the first line that people see that happens. That's, you know, answered by a live person understanding what's going on. You know, is it a missed pickup? Did the truck do something on the route? Okay, if that person can't, you know, if they don't want to call, naturally, people are emailing and texting also. Those systems will be integrated seamlessly, so the resident can do either one. Today, one of the things that people want to use, and you have kind of that right now on your website, and our website's interusable too, is creating an app. So people can go to that and click and say, I want this done, just as easy as they go to a website. Anyways, information is back and forth. All residents want to know is what's happened, is the garbage getting picked up, or is it being missed if it's a snow day, and we give that information to them in live time. Again, if it's after hours, they can email, text, and that will be put right back to them. But the next day, they're getting a call or an email explaining the situation.
And to Bridge City, again, please provide examples of how you would remedy the issue moving forward.
Okay, so first of all, we're gonna staff people right here in Ottumwa. So when phone calls come in, it's answered by staff right here on site. To advance on that, obviously if there's several phone calls come in at a time or you're on the phone with somebody, we're gonna establish a rollover line that will also be answered directly by an individual here in Ottumwa. Along with addressing our trucks and so on to avoid service issues as far as missed pickups and items like that, the advancement of texting and or hitting the website and letting us know of the bulky item pickups, those items will help communicate and give specific points for that service. On top of that, the communications such as if due to a snow day or ice storm or something, anything has to be pushed off to the next day, then we will contact and go through with the city, with Katie, with the city public announcement and any local radio and stuff like that.
Next question to Bridge City Sanitation first. The current proposal includes an annual citywide cleanup program. How do you propose meeting this requirement? Was this service included as part of your original pricing model? And if not, what is your estimated additional cost to provide that service?
First of all, yes, it is part of our initial bid package. That was part of the request for proposal. So based on that service, like I indicated before, we want to work with city staff to get the community-wide cleanup as beneficial to the residents related to the staff, and we're open to options. So between the curbside service, that could be a fine option, how to do that within a certain parameter, whether what day it works and so on. Or before our contract, there was a drop-off site service. So some city staff has indicated that they possibly wanted that service back. So we are open, completely open with working with the city staff on developing that entire process. So it is part of the bid package. There will be no additional cost to that service.
Thank you. To Sparta, was the citywide cleanup service included as part of your pricing model? How do you propose meeting that requirement? And if it was not part of the pricing, what is your estimated additional cost to provide that service?
Yes, the spring cleanup is in our proposal. We did second guess it. I think the best way, and I've done it lots of ways, with the collection sites. We're doing curbside pickup once a year in spring, following your zone system. It'll be on a Saturday, and you'll know generally what we put in our program is the month of April. So like, the first Saturday, if you're zone, we have it listed there like zone 1, you'd be the first Saturday. If you're zone 2, the second Saturday, and zone 3, you would be the third Saturday of that month. Now naturally, if they want to get into it in May, the city can pick out what month they want to do that. Curbside spring collections are most successful, they're convenient for the resident, and we get it all collected at one time.
Question to Sparta. Another issue reported to city staff is a disregard for the containers. How would you address the concern and ensure a workplace culture where employees take pride and responsibility in the work they do under this contract?
This is a tough job, and anyone in it, and Rich can understand that too, and I respect what they do. You have to build a atmosphere that this is a job that's important. And this goes back to what I said, that, we care about the safety of our employees. But also let them take pride in doing it, because these people that collect are an integral part of your city. We're going to be hiring local people here. Make no bones about it. I mean, we're setting a whole operation here in Ottumwa with land, people, equipment, tires and fuel. But those people, we want to empower them to understand this job that's so important. Number one, you do it with wages. Our wages will be the 90th percentile in this town, okay? Let them know this is an important job, incentivize them to do that for promotions, and let them know that there's nothing more better than being in that town, being in this every day, this once a week in that neighborhood. There's a book out, and it's called, I think, Johnny and the Trash Truck, and my wife sells it, so I know it. But the point is that, and I told this in my interview, these young boys love these automated trucks. They think it's the most craziest thing in the world. They see this thing pick up. They get excited about it. Our drivers get excited about that too, and that young boy every day waits to see that guy on that Tuesday or that Wednesday or Friday pick it up and wave that driver. And that driver's going to see that too. And that's what I want our drivers to find, get that feeling that they expect that truck to be there and see that little boy there, and he's excited about it. Another thing we do, and we continue to do, is birthday parties. You don't think it's important, but I got lots of calls from residents saying, listen, my little boy waits to see that garbage truck every day and loves how that thing goes up and down and dumps it. Can you come by our birthday party? Absolutely, we'll do that, and that driver will be there with that clean truck and will love to do it. So those are things that give pride in your job that has nothing to do with money, but just create that atmosphere.
And Bridge City Sanitation, how would you address the concern and ensure a workplace culture where employees take pride and responsibility in the work they do under the contract?
But yeah, there are several issues related to that. First of all, the automated trucks are basically made to put the can back where you pick it up from. So that by itself is going to maintain a lot of those issues. So the second item is education for residents. We see in working with the residents in our current system, the recycle bin is sitting right beside the trash bin. We need to educate the residents to say, we need 3-foot distance to properly reach in with that auto arm truck and grab that trash bin. So those systematic changes will initially help eliminate some of the concerns of the trash cans not being put back where we found them, first of all, and or knocking over a recycle bin or something like that in the process of picking up a trash can first. So on top of that, the education and training of our staff and the constant, we have weekly training meetings. We've done, new staff when they're hired, we do training with them, and it's indicated and followed up on with that procedure that this is what's intended. So we want the safety of our individuals, we want the safety of the residents, we want things put back where they belong. So with the red, we're moving now from the red bins to the blue recycle bins. So those will be a lot more proficient in putting them back where they were. Obviously, when you do curbside recycling, we have to carry them sometimes 20, 30 feet to get the recycling done. So to get those back to the required spot where we got the item requires training and ongoing pride of our residents and our collectors, and that's an ongoing process that we train them properly, and that is expected in the pride of the employee on getting that job done satisfactorily.
Question to Bridge City Sanitation. There's an active campaign to keep the service local. How would you help ensure dollars stay in the community, and how would you propose serving as a partner in the community to address solid waste removal, recycling, and beautification efforts?
So we are interested, like I said, we are 30-plus year Ottumwa residents. We raised our families here. We do everything local here. We invest in our community and have for a long time. We're involved in local churches, the boards, the schools, the college, everything related to that only a local owner can be participating in. We're in Ottumwa walking around every day. We spend our money right here. The involvement with city staff, and again, in one of my points before, we want to work with city staff to become more involved to help them, whether it's through the cleanup, Ottumwa Shine committees, any city organization that we can participate with, we intend to work within this contract to do whatever we can, any item that comes up, to help out the city of Ottumwa, because this is our hometown.
To Sparta, how would you help ensure dollars stay in the community, and how would you propose serving as a partner in the community to address solid waste removal, recycling, and beautification efforts?
Well, we're making an investment in Ottumwa. Make no bounds about it. We're going to be spending over 7 figures here over life of the contract. We're bringing the jobs are here. We are going to be hiring local people. And the workers that no one's displaced. If someone from Bridge Sanitation, we're fortunate to get the contract, we want those people. We give them a chance to work at a great, good wage. And we want that. We're gonna be buying land, tires, fuel, as I said before. The investment we're making here will very well be close to what Bridge City does annually also. I mean, there's not really much of a difference. Now, unless we're have garbage trucks for build here, I mean, if I was John Deere built a garbage truck, I'd buy a garbage truck from them. So we'll be in that investment. For what we do as far as beautification, as I said before, I believe in Keep Out Beautiful Hometown Pride. We're gonna bring that program here to Ottumwa to help with beautifications and education, you know, and how Ottumwa can do these things and help themselves with it. Chambers, you know, we're all about being in chambers, we've always done that, supporting local leagues, setting up special days. One of the things we like to do in Sparta, and I've always done in the past, is have a huge Earth Day celebration. You know, that's like the 4th of July and New Year's and Christmas all together in our industry. You know, we use that as a point to educate people about what's going on and bring the city in and make it fun for them also. So it'll take advantage of, you know, our workforce, everything's going to be here. 99% of the people we have are all going to be here in Ottumwa, and we look forward to trying to do that.
All right, just a couple more quick questions. To Sparta, the city has been interested in an automated collection service for the past 10 years. What is your experience providing automated services?
Well, as I said, we pioneered automated collection in the state of Iowa. We literally wrote the book on how the spacing has to be done. We know how to educate the residents on the placement of the container, and then have it next to a parked car, make sure it's far enough away from the recycling container. There's pamphlets we've created, it's used still today, on how the resident puts the container at a certain, you know, angle at the curb. You know, how our drivers use the routes. One thing that's going to happen here in Ottumwa is we'll have to maybe make some changes. This is up to the city of when we collect and make sure there aren't parked cars in the way of doing it. Again, you know, we wrote the book on automated collection. We know how to do it. We've done it with, you know, 12 inches of snow on the ground. We've done it in shiny days. We're practicing at it and we do it.
Bridge City Sanitation, what is your experience in providing automated services?
Yeah, with our first contract here, that was one of the requirements. I don't know if anybody was here back then. There was a request for an automated bid and a manual bid. We went with the automated bid, and at the time, we went with 3 automated trucks and 1 rear load truck to service these hard to get areas. So we modeled through that within this 9.5 years, and of late had to go unfortunately to a few extra rear loads, waiting to replace our fleet of automated arm trucks. We are fully intending, like the truck that's outside right now, to have 4 of those automated arm trucks going right now. These are state-of-the-art trucks with Labrie arms reaching out 12 feet to maneuver around parked cars, and this is state-of-the-art truck in the industry. And we're bringing them to Ottumwa to help service this area.
And the last question I have for both of you, the proposed contract includes a provision for a customer satisfaction survey. What steps will you take to ensure residents receive a high-quality service? Yeah, sorry, you first, yes.
Okay. Again, it goes back to our commitment to get the proper equipment in here, have our employees that are great working with now. We've got employees that have ranged from up to 9 years of service with us, that have been through all of our ups and downs in Ottumwa. We will continue to strive to make the customers service the best possible related to our equipment and our employees. Constant communication between the residents, city staff, and Bridge City Sanitation to make our hometown the way we want it to be, and make the service 100% transparent with the, back to like the GPSs on the trucks, items like that, educational materials to the residents so they know what they need to do for us to help the service get done properly, and working with city staff, recycling center, the health department, the landfill, to make everything flow smoothly so that the residents get what they're paying for.
And Sparta, what steps will you take to ensure residents receive a high-quality service?
Well, it's constant improvement. That's what it is. That's kind of what ISO and environmental management systems are. You always have to be better. Okay, how do you get better? By benchmarking. We know what we're going to be doing day one, but then we have to rate that, on every year without that benchmarking. That benchmarking comes a couple ways. By internal analytics that we'll provide, that we always do to make sure the trucks are running fine, our drivers, our people run efficiently, but also the feedback from your citizens and the council. This is going to be graded, okay? You have a survey that does go out that grades us. That's the proof in the pudding right there. We want that. We welcome that survey because that's going to help us. If there's something residents don't like, we want to know about it. Now, we can't fix everything. We understand that, but we need that feedback. And so we encourage that feedback in surveys so we know where we're at. It's kind of like when you go online right now and were you happy with that service? What was your rate, on it? We want to know that so we can get better, and we want that two-way communication. That's the way we know how to get it done. We will continue to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to invite the people who filled out sheets to come up. First one I have is Hans Wilkes. We'll give you 3 minutes to make your comments, so get to the point and say what you want to say.
I'm Hans Wills. First of all, to everybody here, to the council, thanks for serving and doing what you do to keep our community growing. Tony, thanks for making the drive down from Des Moines. There's 3 words I'd like to say to start this off. Is local, local, local. We preach it every day to our children, to our businesses, to our community, to our manufacturers, from our city council, to all the acronyms that have letters that signify what they do in this community. We preach local. So we need to keep on that path. Now, I ask you, should we always find a better service? In the bid process, absolutely. But in the process that you're recommending that you've used, it also goes with recommendation and from input from the community. Now, I'm part of the community. I didn't have that input. That's why I came tonight. I want to tell you a couple things. If I was to do a bid process, or if I was the one in your seat, I would ask myself, over the past 10-year contract with Bridge City Sanitation, have you called them in for an upfront meeting with any complaints? Have you sat them down and told them to change their service? Is that part of your process? Have they been called in and reprimanded for any of this past contract? If not, you have to ask yourself, they're doing a good job. You haven't called them in, you haven't communicated that to them. Now, I'm not sure if you have or not, but it's something you should ask yourself. If this company that's in Ottumwa, Iowa, is doing a service for our community, and they're doing a fine job of it, and we haven't reprimanded them or brought them in and said, you are not fulfilling a contract, then we should have a conversation of other services looking at this. So take that as it is. Again, I don't know what happens behind closed doors. The other thing I would say is be very, very confident in the fact that this is a 10-year contract. This family, Keith and the other owners of Bridge City have been here all their lives with their children. They're friends of mine, I'm not going to lie. Tony seems like a nice guy. I'm going to tell you what, he's on a lot of boards. And I can appreciate that, that's knowledge. But it's also in Des Moines, Iowa. By saying that you're going to put another service here and you're going to build, you're also displacing. That's like asking me to move my 66-year-old business to another location and saying, it's for the betterment of the community, Hans, but yet I'm leaving an empty building on Court Street. Would that be right? Would Would that be the growth of Ottumwa? I think not. So, secondly, there's 23 jobs that are provided by Bridge City Sanitation at this time. $800,000 worth of jobs. Not to mention the tires they buy, the local businesses they use to fix their trucks, and also the local gas and vendors that they use. I'm not saying that Tony won't do that, I'm just saying this has been going on during this entire contract. That Bridge City Sanitation, a locally owned community company, has been using local people to service their trucks. I think it's pretty important. There's a lot of other things I want to talk about, but I only have 3 minutes. And I get the whole 1% thing's not on the table tonight, and I get that. The cost of what we're doing displaces a local family or local families. There's no guarantee, although Tony says he'll have 99% of his employees, or 99% of that money will stay here. There's no guarantee of that. I wish there was. There's no guarantees. Any of the questions you guys have put on what is required, they're only promises. Promises that I know that I can accept easier from somebody that has been here for over 30 years. I'm not saying Tony wouldn't do it. I'm just saying thanks for coming down and thank you guys for doing what you do.
Lisa Smith.
My name is Lisa Smith, and I'm a lifelong Ottumwan here. And my first reason for showing up tonight was to let you know that I've been a Bridge City customer that has never had a complaint with service, cost, any of it. And I think you know when you have a forum like what you're having tonight, normally the only people who have the incentive to show up here are people who have a problem. They're not going to be motivated to be here if your garbage is gone and everything is fine in the morning because you don't even see it, you don't even think of it, and that's the way it should be. But I'll guarantee you that whoever has the contract for the next 10 years, the only people you're ever going to hear from are the people who have a problem. And so I thought it was very important for me to be here tonight to tell you that I've always been satisfied with that service. But the most important reason that I'm here is that as a lifelong Ottumwan, I have an enormous problem with the thought of a $19 million contract going to an out-of-town business. I understand sometimes there's going to be a reason that that will have to be done, but this is not one of those times. You have an existing locally owned business that has provided a service here, and the profits stay here. They're locally owned, and so the Sparta representative, is talking about he'll replace his tires, he'll do all of those things here. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the profits out of the company, the profits out of this $19 million contract. These guys here keep in Ottumwa, and that helps Ottumwa businesses, organizations. I happen to know that one of the owners here is active in the chamber that helps other businesses, and we're going to say to someone working in the chamber, we want to send $19 million, the profits from that, to another company. There is no way to measure that in a presentation that people are giving you. The message you will send to other locally owned businesses who have invested their family and their life here, by doing that, the message you're going to send to them will just be unbelievable. So I want to urge you to keep the contract with Bridge City. There are things that you can't measure in the types of questions that you have here. It's the profits that matter and where those profits are going to go. The Sparta representative a moment ago said, he used the words locally owned and then clarified Iowa locally owned. I'll be honest, I thought it was a little bit shady even there. There is a huge difference when the profits for that company are going to go back to where he lives and where he has made his home and his investment. And that's the difference with Bridge City. So I strongly urge you to keep the contract with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian McWilliams.
Thank you everyone for your time. My name is Brian McWilliams. I'm the president of McKinney Reed Insurance. I come before you tonight because the decision that you guys are tasked with will directly impact my business. I've had the privilege of writing Bridge City Sanitation's insurance since 2013. I think both contractors would attest the amount of money these companies spend between their insurance, health insurance, fuel, tires, repair bills is a large ticket item. Taking this contract out of town will directly impact me. I have no guarantees that I would ever have a shot, or any of these other businesses. And I do appreciate, and I have no doubt that there would be some local employees hired, whether it's tires, fuel, some of that, could stay local, but that's just what they're telling you. We have a company that's been here since 2009 doing this, that's proven. There's a big difference. It's proven versus somebody that's just telling you, this is what we plan to do. The other thing I want to make a point, because I think Hans touched on a lot of my local points, is I sit on a lot of boards with several of you, and we developed this one Ottumwa, one community, one purpose, one Ottumwa. And it took a long time, and it's still a work in progress. But we go out to our local businesses and we say, and our citizens, and we say, shop local, buy local, right? That's what we preach to our entire community. And yet, tonight, we're having a conversation of whether or not to move a $20 million contract to a contractor out of town when we have a contractor who has been doing it, and been doing it well. That makes no sense to me at all. I ask that you guys, before you make that decision, remember that one Ottumwa and why we developed it. There was a lot of time, a lot of conversations, and it is important. I agree with the previous comments that if we're going to sit here and move a contract such as this out of town, what does that say to us other local businesses? I mean, do we ever have a shot? We already struggle the way it is. We have an opportunity here to do what's right. And I come before you to ask you to do that. Thank you for your time.
Jesse Kilborg.
Hi, I'm Jesse Kilberg, owner of Kilberg Equipment, also a small business owner over in eastern Iowa. But I'm a garbage and recycling equipment dealer. I've been in the industry for 17 years. Me and my wife started our business 3 years ago in a small town in Preston, Iowa, 1,000 people. We were told to start in a bigger town, but we like small towns, just like Ottumwa here, community and everything else. But I just wanted to touch a little bit on the trucks, the equipment that Keith and Jason are looking to invest in. The truck outside they have purchased from me just last week to fill their needs. We've had it about a month ago, but we've been reconditioning it. When I started my company 3 years ago, I took two of the main mechanics that were working for me. One had 30 years of experience, the other one had 17 at the time. Right now we have over 52 years of experience between the two of them. That's not a new truck outside. It's pretty much a new truck now. We took it in on trade, we rebuilt it, we did everything from the brakes to the tires, air lines, everything mechanical on it. Completely rebuilt the arm. Put a new hopper in it with a hard ox steel, which is the hardest steel in the industry. Rebuilt the cylinders, replaced the cylinders. The nice thing, they bought this truck, they had a need for it. They were waiting for it. We have 3 matching trucks identical to this. At our fingertips is waiting for Bridge City to get the contract. Nice thing about that, the 4 trucks being the same, they're all Peterbilts, they're all the same model here. The bodies are all also identical. Makes it really easy for the drivers. They don't have different trucks they're jumping in and out, learning how to relearn. Any of them can drive any of the trucks. It also helps them on the maintenance side of things. They got to stock way less parts on their shelves with all identical trucks. We also have 3 of the top selects, the recycling trucks with the 3-sort system, so you guys can maintain that. They're also on Peterbilts. As far as the trucks, like they said, 12-foot reach, so you can get around cars, through cars. You can't go over top of the car, but if there's 2 cars parked 10 foot of reach, you can reach in and grab. You can also pick them up 5 foot off the ground. You can 5 foot off the ground with this arm. If you got snow drifts, you got hills, you're a river town, you have hills. You got hills, embankments, stuff like that, you can go 5 foot up. The Labrie truck, trusted truck, I did a little research today. There's over 300 Labrie garbage trucks within a 200-mile radius of Ottumwa here. Biggest population, closest population, City of Cedar Rapids has 35 of them from me. City of Iowa City has 12 of them from me. City of Coralville has 2 of them. City of Dubuque has 14 of them. They just ordered 2 more today. I also sell carts. I can help Keith and Jason implement the carts. I have companies that will go out and deliver the carts, put them out, GPS them, make sure they're in them, put even little chips in them if they want, so they make sure they stay at the right resident. The truck out here is also equipped with the GPS, or set up and ready to go. Very inexpensive to add the GPS system, and 360, 24/7 viewing. We do it for the city of Iowa City, we do it for the city of Cedar Rapids, all their trucks. As far as our service, yeah, we're a new company as well. We've only been in business 3 years, but I got 17 years of experience. Our 2 service guys, like I said, over 50 years. I have 1 staff in Mount Pleasant, 4 days a week, so 45 minutes away. We also got a great relationship with Bridge City Repair, truck repair. They do a lot of work for us. I know it's another local company that Keith and Jason both do a lot of work with. They do some of our service work. Another thing we're going to do to help Jason and Keith out is we're going to stock $15,000 worth of wear parts. Our trucks are the best, but they're mechanical. Everybody knows anything mechanical can break down. Pumps, PTOs, fingers, all the wear items. I'm investing $15,000, going to put it on their shelf. They're not going to get charged for it unless Bridge City Sanitation, or Bridge City Repair takes them off, or my guys come and fix them. That way, it's going to eliminate the downtime. I got $50,000 worth of parts in Preston, Iowa, but that's 2 hours away, a little over 2 hours.
Okay.
Thank you
for your comments.
Thank you very much, Council.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the council for questions, comments, suggestions. And I know Councilman Rowe has a list of questions he'd like to start with, so Mark, you have the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you both for being here and presenting. Thank you to the citizens for coming out and voicing your opinions. This is obviously a very sensitive subject, and I would like to say, just as a matter of batting clean up here before we get started, it is a consistent thing that we've heard is why would you even go through this process? They're the local company. And I think it's important to remind the citizens of this community, even if we don't decide to move away from the local company that's here already, it is incumbent upon us as elected officials to ensure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the taxpayers are getting the best service at the best price that they possibly can. So that is why we're going through this service. We would not be doing our jobs if we weren't making sure that we were delivering the best service and or product to the citizens of Ottumwa. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. I have several questions here that I would like to ask each individual company. I'm sorry for the inundation of questions, but as you are both companies are intimately aware, we did not have the luxury of having a whole lot of time to spend with that at the last meeting. So, and the council did not have a lot of time to absorb information. So with that, some of these questions are going to sound rather harsh. They're going to sound rather direct. And some of them are going to be a little bit of a repetition of maybe some of the things that you had already said. However, what I'm looking for perhaps is a little bit more specificity in the responses that you gave. And most every one of these questions to both organizations are based on calls that I personally have received, either in the last couple of weeks or over my tenure as a council person. So I'm not looking to be harsh with either company. I am looking for an objective way to come to an objective decision myself. So with that, I would like to take a little bit different approach than what Administrator Raff had taken and bouncing back and forth. I would like to start and ask all the questions to one organization, and then when those are finished, ask to the next organization, if that's okay. So to begin, I would like to start with Sparta. And first question, do you intend formally to locate a facility in Ottumwa as a tax-paying corporation whose purchases and maintains equipment locally, and are you willing to formally commit to this in contract?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 2. On your website, you mentioned the Sparta saying, and I quote, "Give nothing to the enemy, but take everything." In communities that you serve, how do you give back to the community that is writing your paycheck? The importance of this, as you've well heard tonight from several people that got up here and spoke, this is key. You know, while most of the money is staying in the community, obviously the profits are by nature leaving the community. And while we know that on a $19-20 million contract, those profits over the life might only be a couple $100,000, but that's still a couple $100,000 that inherently is going to leave the community. How are you going to give back, given the fact that most of those profits will leave?
Well, what we say is we give everything to our customer, the tagline, nothing to competition, means we leave everything for the customer, which is the city of Ottumwa. And those givebacks, I think, would far exceed any profits we have by bringing top-of-the-line technology and services like the city's never seen. We're not waiting for the next best system to have. And everything I've told you today is in my RFP. This isn't, I mean, I'm not trying to come here and say I'm coming to Ottumwa and make these things up. This was talked about my RFP again and again. As far as the GPS, I find it interesting that there's no discussion of curbside collection of the inner RFP at all, of spring cleanup, so I mentioned it. We invite comparison, we invite imitation, because we do that in my whole life. I think the thing I'm going to bring to you with Hometown Pride will far exceed any problem. Hometown Pride's program, if you know anything about Keep Out Beautiful, is I want to set this up where we bring money back to the city of Ottumwa, okay, through grants, the beautification. That's what Hometown Pride does. Hometown Pride, every community that's done it, over $500,000 is invested in the community if we can get Ottumwa selected as that. So this isn't just, I just don't come here saying, well, we're going to come here and do this and take money back. No, there's a huge investment we're making in this city. And Bridge City's not, this is the only thing Bridge City does. They do more than just residential. Their commercial program will stay intact. Now, if they choose to go out of business because they lost a city contract, they have other business outside. This does not affect Bridge City's commercial business or their places outside of the city. Remember that. They're still going to be intact. I look at this as a nice add-on in competition to make everyone better. Listen, I'm a local person, okay? I've been on the side of Bridge City, but I'm from Iowa. I mean, your person who talks about the trucks, he's not from Ottumwa, all right? Well, what about the poor little town that, you know, he's taking business from there? Let's all be real. Ottumwa's a great city, and I want to be part of it. We're going to be part of it. But make no bones about it. We're going to make an investment here, and I will guarantee you we'll bring back more money than we ever take out.
An important consideration is the economic impact of awarding a contract of this size. What is the wage range and available benefits of your employee base? Do you intend to hire local or bring in outside labor for your staffing needs? Finally, if you are awarded the contract, do you intend to give consideration to the displaced employees of the former provider?
Yes, not close that before it. I don't want anyone displaced. I put in our bid the requirements for an employee that we have at Sparta, given that they're DOT certified, that they're tested, that they have the safety requirements. Okay. No, everyone from Bridge City will get an opportunity to work here. Our wages will be higher than probably Bridge City is right now, for the 20th percentile. Given what Ottumwa pays right now and what I looked online, our wages at the low to mid 20s that we're putting in will pale in comparison.
When you say 20s, because you just said 20th percentile, you mean $20?
No, $20 an hour is the minimum we pay for employees. And we have insurance that we have for employees. We provide vacations, paid holidays. I mean, all this will be, when we want to hire people, we provide good jobs. Would you understand, turning people around and having overtime, and not overtime, but turnover affects us. We want employees who want to be here a long time. And we want to incentivize them to be there with benefits, with insurance, again, Delta Dental, all those things that we provide on. It's a good job, a really good job.
In the last 10 years, have you prematurely relinquished any contracts for service in any community that you've contracted with? If so, what were the reasons for doing so?
Now,
you had previously mentioned that you utilized a call center to handle complaints. How long is that call center staffed? By how many employees? And is the call center dedicated to each individual community? If not, how many communities are the staff responsible for responding to community concerns?
what we'll do with Ottumwa, there's a dedicated line, there's a local line, that call center.
One local line, just so we're clear.
Well, no, that line will roll over. I mean, it doesn't matter how people can call. The way the systems are set up now, that it's like we call the same number. If the next person's again, it rolls over again and again and again. I've serviced thousands and thousands of people with a 3-person call center. I was able to handle all these calls. So we're going to put a 2-person call center dedicated just to Ottumwa with a local line. They can choose one run out. Every other people are available to answer that line. But most of those calls come in the beginning of any project, I've learned. After time, those calls tend to, around holidays or snow events tend to go the other way. But I've done the big call centers. We take the calls in, track them, get the information back to you, the council members, and also get it back to the citizens too. Make sure they know that their call is being taken and they can find out there's follow-up. That's the important thing. And it's followed up by email or text. That's what they call it. What the service was done, it was picked up, they get a call back from them.
To Smith's point, we rarely hear about the positive experiences. We usually do only hear about the negative experiences. I think we can all agree on that. But the bulk of what we seem to be discussing tonight, because the dollar volume is so close, is going to be based on service. So given that, any one of us can do a simple online search that shows several complaints from customers in the communities in which you serve. How does your business model for Ottumwa differ from this other company that will mitigate these complaints? And do you have data available tonight to show a pattern of problem resolution?
From what other company you're talking about? For instance?
The competitor here tonight.
Okay. How do our complaints relate to them?
No, what I'm saying is, sorry if that was unclear. One of the pieces, the biggest pieces of this is service related. And clearly a task tonight is service. And if you're going to say that you have better service than them, I can get online and do searches that say you have plenty of poor service as well. So that being said, how are you going to ensure to the citizens of Ottumwa that you are going to have a good service?
Well, and I think again, it is about service. And as like the lady said, our industry is like red light syndrome. You only hear about the red light when it doesn't work. As I've told you before, we've done millions of service calls and pickups in my time I've joined this. When I've averaged them out, and even the ones I have right now, it's not even a percent of the service calls we do. Right now, we're doing over 10,000 service calls, impressions on individuals and customers a week. Okay, let's do that over, a month, over 50,000, 500,000 service impressions a year. Yes, there are complaints, and there's going to be complaints, and we take all of them seriously. But we understand too that we can't make, you're in city government, and anytime you change anything from the fire hydrants to a street name, there's going to be objections to it. And we understand that people sometimes don't like change. But all we do is put the information, as you alluded to, in call centers, tracking. Again, being totally transparent and having surveys to let us know what you want to work on. That's how you ensure constant improvement. Our first day, probably, I'm telling you right now, it takes time to learn that. But I'll tell you, our first day is going to be a good day with our trucks and equipment, and it'll be as good as our last day. We don't want to wait for, at the end of a contract, to say, well, now we're going to do this. If you look at a city I went to, our last day in that city was as good as our first day. The trucks were running, the people were on time, and our people were enthusiastic to get it done. That's what I know about service.
So that might lead to the next question. What is your capital procurement replacement policy?
Well, it's a lifetime use of the truck and how you maintenance them. Okay? The industry average on trucks, and I've had trucks that are new and rebuilt like Bridge City has, it's 5 to 7 years. Now, in the meantime, if a truck needs it, you replace that. But it's the improvements on it. We right now, per truck, we invest per unit in maintenance close to 5% of the annual contract into the truck is maintenance. That's a minimum we put into it. You have insurance and things like that, but that's not the capital cost of the truck. That's just maintenance I'm talking about. And that's not tires or fuel or oil. That's pure maintenance on those trucks. That's changing brakes. That's making sure the hydraulics work right on the truck. Lights, fixtures, things like that. It's a good amount, put over $20 million.
And you, again, this is another one that you have alluded to as well in a couple questions prior. How do you benchmark yourself against industry standards?
I know what the industry standards are that are out there. One of the things by, being a member of the association is we track a standard on, what you're supposed to do per route. The average automated route can do between 800 and 1,000 homes a day. Okay, we know that's a standard. That's there. Okay, we wouldn't hit that standard. We know the standard of picking up and curbside recycling, is about, 500, 600, you have to sort that out. We follow those in the industry standards, not only in our performance of picking up, but in our maintenance also.
You have had the opportunity to see the Ottumwa market, analyze the routes, and I assume plan your approach to addressing efficiencies. Can you please be specific in telling the citizens of Ottumwa exactly how you would be a better fit for our community than the current provider?
I believe, again, I don't want to disparage you're a hardworking person here, and I'll never do that. They do, it's a hard job. And I'm not going to say that these people aren't trying their best. But I think sometimes bringing a different set of eyes to it helps out. I think that in this program, the automated collection that Bridge City is now, I'm going to start day one. I think the add-ons we're talking about with curbside collection for the spring cleanup, the analytics with the meshing together, the GPS and the camera systems, you're going to have day one. I believe in your contract, just from my, being in the industry and doing it, that there's lots of upgrades that we can do from your current system. Okay, and I think those will be apparent from the first 90 days.
Okay. And my final question for you. Will you commit tonight, if you are awarded this contract, to periodic formal reviews of your contract performance with the city of Ottumwa?
I invite it.
Thank you for your responses.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bridge City. And again, just as a reminder, all of these questions that I'm about to ask are based on experience that I personally have had and try and get the best possible decision. Number one, unfortunately, you have the title of being the incumbent service provider, which is a blessing and a curse both. Over the last multiple years, your company has been plagued with complaints of poor customer service, poor collection efforts, damage to property, lateness and drop-offs that are costing the city additional money and labor hours, have had employees disallowed from being on landfill property, and had complaints of a questionable employment environment. Being a local company does not, in my mind, hold a company as the natural heir to a throne just because they're local. Your company has had 10 years to address these problems, but has not done so, at least to the satisfaction of those in which you serve. For the last 4 years, I can't enumerate the volume of calls that I personally have fielded complaining about your company, most of those calls ending with, why can't we get a new trash company? I've heard the procedures are changing now, which is amazing, but this only comes at the heels of being at risk of losing a contract. Can you address this publicly and specifically, how you intend to move forward if you're re-awarded this contract?
Yeah, first of all, we know and take ownership of those issues. We have implemented, we learned something with this current contract as far as pricing structure to enable us, once we get into the later years of the contract, being financially sound to make, first of all, the equipment improvements that we need to make to satisfactorily do the job. The complaints regarding the phone issues, that is nothing that we have just recently attempted to address. But with the implementation or the awarding of a new contract, we will obviously be more financially capable of making the improvements necessary to implement the changes in the communication with the residents, first of all, dealing with any issues related to service issues that we previously addressed, as far as the cans not being placed in the right spot, just the continual systematic changes that need to be made. We've addressed them with the city staff. They're related to possible employee issues related to city staff. We addressed them, first of all, with the employee, and we would attempt to sit down with the city staff, whoever has that issue related to an employee in a landfill and so on is one instant I think you're making reference to. We would appreciate the opportunities to sit down with the city staff and our employee and ourselves to work out any possible issues. Obviously, our employees need to be accessible to the landfill. Whatever issues there are related to employees and staff can be worked out. They can be addressed through additional training and working out between the staff and the employee. The phone communication issues, we have been working on implementing those over some time now. It's not a short-term fix, setting up a website, doing that kind of stuff. So these are all things that we're planning to implement immediately. We are not waiting until the new contract kicks in July. We are not waiting to implement that. If we award the contract, we will be implementing these systematic changes related to those issues immediately.
So just to follow up on that, one specific point that you had mentioned about meeting with city staff, and this is an attempt to maintain fairness because we all know that no contract is exactly all on one. So in an attempt to maintain fairness, in your opinion, Mr. Lewis, has there been a formal review process in place between Bridge City Sanitation and the city of Ottumwa? If not, can I get a city representative to explain why this has not occurred given the volume of negative feedback that we've had over the last 10 years?
So as far as sitting down with us as a formal review of our service and issues that have come up, I would say no. We do not have representation, communication combined to satisfy those issues.
Okay, so I guess to the latter part of that question, can I get a city representative to explain why that process has not occurred?
Yes, thank you. I began as the director of planning, development, and otherwise, I think almost 2 years ago, roughly, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Seems like time has flown. But one of the first actions that I did regarding the solid waste pickup portion of that was I got Jason to come to my office, and we informally spoke about some of the trouble that was going on. I think verbatim, one of the terms that I used was that the contract was in jeopardy. I believe that verbatim is one of the sentences that I used that day, because I wanted to discuss the different issues that we had been experiencing. It wasn't that the mayor or the city manager at the time, Phil was not here, did not know or were not cogent of what was going on in the community as far as some of the problems that we had had. Of course, council members also were familiar with some of that. If they got a call, and they would contact me directly. So there was a good level of communication flow between all individuals involved, and I felt like it was a better idea that between myself and the two country boys, we get together and talk about this thing in private, in a real way, and see how we could, start addressing those problems. It was about a year and a half out from the contract, and I did feel like, as I told them, that the contract was in jeopardy. I did not want to undertake a formal process because I felt like we were about a year at that time away from doing our contract renewal process. And I didn't want to taint the contract renewal process with the new director coming into a position and suddenly undertaking an onslaught with formal meetings with mayor and city manager. I felt like it would cast a pall on the process of selecting a new carrier. Whether or not it was going to be the same character or carrier, I didn't know. But at the same time, I didn't want to taint that process or give an indication to our public that there was some unfairness to that process, because all along the way, building up to that bid out, or that RFP as we ended up doing, all the way along to doing that, there was this process of review that our company was in jeopardy in some way building up to that. I thought that would not be appropriate, given that they had served the community for, at that time, 9 years. So I wanted to do it informally. As the head of the department, it was my call initially. Like I said, it isn't like the city manager this time, or the mayor, or different council people who were called. I'm not sure that every council member was called on a regular basis or ever. Some members probably didn't hear much about waste. I guess it depends on the member, but that's the reason that we didn't undertake a formal process, because I didn't feel like that it would be fair to our carrier, given what we were coming up on.
Thank you. Okay, to compare apples to apples, Mr. Lewis, looking at economic impact and comparing on the level field, what is the salary range and available benefits of those in which you employ?
So of course, our range is very competitive in the industry, in the Ottumwa area. It obviously varies between the experience. Some of our guys, like I said, have been with us for 9 years. Drivers that, so basically it depends on experience and qualifications, and is very competitive in the Ottumwa area, higher than average.
Can you tell us how call complaints are handled? A very common complaint is that calls are never answered, messages are never returned. Do you have a call center? And if so, how is it staffed and for how long? If not, your current practice is less than ideal. How do you plan to address this in the future?
Yes, we have a current shop that is staffed by right now, one employee that answers the phone between 8 and 4:30. That phone line, if she is, for example, if they are on the phone, then it rolls over to an answering machine to take those requests. So inevitably, multiple people might call at one time, so it does roll over to an answering machine. Those messages are recorded and logged down. A lot of them are just requests for bulky service, for example, and the information is taken down and put on a list for that service on Tuesdays or Thursdays. Other items requesting, like a missed service or whatever, that is communicated to the shop supervisor that follows up on it with the drivers on the street via cell phone. And right now, as we indicated, we are looking at improving that with a minimum of 2 lines, along with the website with the email service and texting to report bulky item service and items like that really don't require a resident to specifically talk to our shop. They just want to leave a message to get on the list. That by itself will clean up the call items, and there should never be some items. If we take care of it, like a missed service, shop manager gets a hold of the driver, they go out and take care of it. Sometimes there's no follow-up, it's just done. It's a satisfactory service. The other item related to possible callbacks is due to education. So we need to educate the residents. For example, like a bulky item service, that needs to be called in and gotten on the list. There's numerous people who call in and say, my bulky item's been out there for several weeks, and it's still out there. Well, did you call it in? No. So, we don't see everything that's sitting out there. We pick up south side on Tuesdays, north side on Thursdays. If they set out a bulky item on Monday on the north side, it's going to sit there for a few days. So education on when they set the item out will help alleviate those phone calls.
What is your capital procurement replacement policy?
So with working with Kilberg Equipment on these new trucks, we're looking at, like he indicated, we are looking at the maintenance features being readily available right here. We are looking at a 3 to 5 year replacement period on majority of these trucks. Within a system with Kilberg Equipment, bringing items that he acquires off lease, we will keep the trucks cycled through. And again, with learning on the factors of the current contract and financially building in this current contract, we ended up over $3 difference than the next lowest bidder on the current contract. That unfortunately was bad decision on us on how much to bid in those later years to replace the trucks. So with the current contract, we have that replacement feature built in for a 3 to 5 year turnover in trucks.
Again, a repeat, how do you benchmark yourselves against industry standards?
So we benchmark ourselves towards Ottumwa residents. This is the community we serve. This is the only community we serve. So we sit here, we do not like the complaints. We do not like stuff that goes on in our community. It is all benchmarked on that customer satisfaction, feedback that we want to get from city staff, council, anybody we can to get us feedback on what comments there are in the community. So it's all going to be based on, the proposal says there's going to be surveys going out to indicate customer satisfaction. Now, the problem with surveys, only 2 or 3% send them back. So it's going to be based on logging the phone calls, logging the incidents within the city of Ottumwa. This is our community, this is our hometown. That's who we're dealing with, is the city of Ottumwa.
Can you tell the citizens of Ottumwa your 5-year strategy plan to improve the logistics of your operation, your fleet, and any growth that may occur as a result of being awarded this contract? Specifically, though, do you intend to maintain the path of business as usual, or do you intend to operate under a constant improvement and best practices model?
You know, we have clear intentions with the new contract to improve everything immediately. Even though the new contract might not kick over until July, we are planning to implement everything immediately. So between our investment in these new trucks with the GPS system and the camera monitoring system, that will help us with maintaining the routes, driver accountability, everything related to service. So our full intentions within not only 5 years, but the full 10 years of the contract, we are making the improvements necessary for the required service for the city of Ottumwa. We don't have aspirations to build a huge empire. We want to take care of our hometown, and that's what we intend to do.
Last question. Will you commit tonight, if you are awarded this contract, to periodic formal reviews of your contract performance with the city of Ottumwa?
Yes, we would make a requirement that we have continuous involvement with the city staff, even council, to get feedback that would allow us to make any possible changes. That is 100% assurance of Bridge City Sanitation.
Thank you. I want to thank both companies for bearing with my litany of questions. I very much appreciate it, Your Honor. I'm true.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to any other council person that would like to make any comments or have any questions that haven't been covered tonight. So this is your chance to have some discussion amongst yourselves. So is there anyone that wants to speak up at this point? Councilman Byrd?
I don't know what's left, no. I just had a couple of follow-up questions, and these are based on questions that I've been getting from citizens about the process and things. I know in Sparta's contract, it talks about the recycling toters, but I don't believe it was in the proposal. But when called by Jason, he said that was available. So I think that was a concern of mine. Something we've heard, I think, echoed from tons of residents is the desire for big recycling bins. I mean, I think that was probably the number one thing when we did that customer input on what they want to see, having those closed recycling bins. And maybe it's in there and I totally missed it, but, and again, I apologize if it's in there and I totally looked right past it. I just wanted to get assurances that that would be something moving forward to move into those larger bins, which you said, but yeah.
Yes, the 32 gallon, similar to the city's blue recycle bins that they've provided with the DNR grants over the past several years. Those will be available to residents that want them.
Thank you. Regarding how the calls you received were, is there anything that addresses how people are getting the customer service they're getting from the call center recorded or documented or anything followed up? I know there were several concerns of when they called, the service that was received told there weren't any trash cans available for replacement, things like that. Is there a way to ensure that in the future those things are monitored?
Okay, so one thing I want under the current contract related to the black totes that we provided to all residents from day one. We are maintaining those at our cost. We replace wheels, we replace lids. Whenever those are damaged either by our truck or randomly, I mean, they're made of plastic, so in the winter, the harsh winter, those items break and we replace those constantly. Those are our maintenance issues. If a resident destroys their can, we also follow up and we replace those. We work directly with the Ottumwa Waterworks related to new hookups and or disconnects, and partnership with them to give cans to new services, you know, a new house or a previously unoccupied house. We get the service order and we deliver a can. So that's the procedure with that.
Okay, because someone had, a resident called me to tell me that they were told there weren't any replacement cans available a couple weeks ago.
Maybe the blue, we don't have the blue recycle totes.
It was trash can.
Yeah, we have black trash totes, yes.
One question regarding the contract start time. I know you've said that you'll move to the 6 a.m. start time. Currently it's 4 a.m., but it's often starting before that 4 a.m. contract time now. So that's one thing that leads me to concern on assuring that it would indeed start after 6. It's been starting at 3 I know not just from calls, but from my house too, so it's confirmed. It's been starting before that contract time. So I guess I'm concerned about moving that, if it will be adhered to.
Yes, we intend to, our employees get to the shop, they go through their morning startup procedures. You know, there are times when everything goes great that they're actually on the street before 4 o'clock. That doesn't mean they got half a route done by 4 o'clock, but they get in there, go through their morning startup procedures and get out on the road. So there's situations like that. We fully intend to deal with and change the starting time of street service to 6 o'clock according to the request for proposals. And I believe in between Memorial Day and Labor Day, that moves to 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And for Sparta, I know, not to leave you out, several of the complaints online, again, I know those are things that you're gonna get the complaints and not the compliments, but there were several comments about starting before contracted start time as well. Is that something you seem to have an issue with in certain communities? Because it was mentioned several times.
That's more with just the commercial services. One of the things we do, we do lots of schools, and you always get a school says we want it done before this, and then you have residents, so we make adjustments to that. Yes, in the perfect world, I would like to pick up garbage at 1 o'clock in the morning, but that doesn't work too well. So we abide by those city standards. And where we are, there's different cities at different times. Sometimes you could go in one city, it starts at 7, and some cities start at, it's 8. So it goes all overboard. But we have to be sensitive to that and make adjustments.
Thank you. The last question I have, I promise. I know everybody's getting tired. I know in the proposal and contract, it talks about a 5-year review period to assess performance. Knowing that obviously 10-year contract is a long time and makes this decision, very significant. Would either of you be willing to have those review periods done at a more frequent basis to ensure that if there are significant breaches of the contract, that that's something that could be addressed? Sorry, Sparta can start first.
Okay. Well, the answer is yes. In contracts I've had of this length, 10 years, there was actually, every other year, there was citizen reviews. And the citizens did a survey, like you guys are talking about, and we come in and look at improvements to do that. I mean, for us, that's a standard practice. And if that's what the city wishes, we will be happy to participate in that. Matter of fact, we paid for the survey and reimbursed the city for it.
I would be willing and be interested in probably an annual review with staff and our residents, because we want issues resolved. We don't want them to drag on. There's there's comments that came up during this entire process that we really hadn't heard before. So we, even annually or more often, whatever our city wants to do it.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Pat, did you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I got a question here. I don't know if I'm on here or not, but that's okay. I think Mark took a majority of my questions, so I had to kind of regroup and come up with some of the ones that were important to me, kind of condense them down into one. I just want to say out there that I hope everybody in the community would know that I don't believe that there's any council member up here that's going to represent a city and willingly throw their local business to the wind. There's got to be other reasons. And so I have a question for city staff, and I want to leave the complaints and anytime there's a service provider, you're going to have complaints. And we are one of the biggest public service positions around, so we know how that is. And so I want to kind of leave that off the table as far as just grading on that on our current provider. But obviously the city has chosen to recommend another one. Now, like I said before, I don't believe staff would put that in front of the city council, who has remained very loyal to their local businesses without a reason. So the question I want to ask Mr. Flanagan is, you spoke of a non-formal review process, well, a formal review process that we did not have, but you did say that around a year and a half ago, the current provider was, you had a meeting with them and you talked about some issues that they were having, or perceptions of the community that the people were having with their service. In your best opinion, after that meeting, and in the year and a half that followed that, was there significant improvement over the items in which you talked about, such as was there an attempt to make improvements? Were they lasting improvements? And did they make an effort to do that? Because my question is, I know you wouldn't have put this in front of us with a recommendation for an out-of-town company without good reason. So I'd like to hear what your reason is. Thank you.
That's a great question. And no, I would not. Because, a lot of folks in this room may be a lot more familiar with what my house looks like than what I look like. Because I'm sure a lot of people in this room have seen a picture of my house online when it was part of what's going on Facebook, I think it was, where we're talking about how much that the planning director, myself, doesn't care about Ottumwa. And I just want to direct that to begin with, because I'm a local somewhere, right? I had Southern Erosion Solutions, LLC in Dahlonega, Georgia. Our Dahlonega here is named after a little mountain town. I didn't get every bid I went for locally, but I did a lot of work for the city, and I did a lot of work for the county, a little bit for the feds too. So I know exactly where our carrier is at, our present carrier is at, our local company is at. I know what they're going through. I'm all about the local spending, local companies, local businesses. We talk about it all the time. It's a big part of what we do as a career. Now, at the time when I was back there, I never ever saw myself leaving that place and going anywhere. But since then, of course, I became a city manager at a couple of different places in Iowa. First on the west and then on the east side. Everybody knows, I guess at this point, Fairfield. I stepped down from there a few years ago. The first time I came to Ottumwa was 2015, when I put in to be the city manager of Ottumwa. Now, I wasn't lucky in that search, and that's okay, right? I came back. I have never went back anywhere after that first time. I don't think many people do that in my business, but I did. And the reason was, my wife wanted to live in this area. We have been coming to Ottumwa for 6 years, 7 years, as long as we've lived in this area. I started in 2012 in Fairfield, so 8 years actually, as city administrator, 2 years there. And you know, for the most part, I still live in Fairfield because my wife, I'm afraid to put my 16 and 17-year-old boys on the street, driving back and forth from Fairfield to here in the winter. That's the biggest reason, not just for their own safety, but for everybody else on the street as well. So to direct to the, you know, why would somebody like that, like me, who back home would defend, it was a tourist community, it was a collegiate community, people were moving in all the time. I was constantly defending newcomers. To all my fellow nuggets, we called ourselves, the original Delonigans, the original families, right? Because I'm one of the original families, my family, the Gooches. And so I was always defending these people. And then I've become one of those people in 2 different cities, 3 now, really, because here in Ottumwa you get that sometimes because of my position as a planning director. I'm helping to make major decisions that impact this community. The reason I came back and applied at Ottumwa because I saw the potential of this community. And since I was lucky enough to be appointed to my post, I've met tons of people, made really good friends, met a lot of people in this community. I care greatly for what goes on in this community, for its solvency, for the budget, for the community, the quality of our lives in this community. I spend as much time in this city as I spend in my own home. I haven't read a newspaper in Fairfield since I stepped down as city manager in 2014. I read the paper here every time it comes out, the day it comes out, because I care. Now, besides all that, the reason that I made the recommendation I made, or that we made the recommendation we made, because it wasn't just myself, there were 6 or 7 of us in the room. Most of us having great experience with solid waste provision in one way or another. Myself as a city manager in a couple of cities, in working in a county, I dealt with solid waste. Phil's got ample experience with solid waste as a city manager. We've got Chris Betten from the private industry of solid waste, who runs our landfill manager. You know, Janice Bain is our recycling coordinator for years. The combined years of service there is probably 20, at least, in the solid waste industry. So there was one person in that room who didn't have any experience with solid waste. There's our finance director, Kayla Mulder, who had a good eye, and of course she's our finance director. Of course she's going to be in there, since it's one of our biggest contracts. But she is not unfamiliar with our community, with our carrier, and being from this area, born and raised. So none of us were happy coming forward and giving this to your council. You're not happy doing that. And you're not, I've developed a good relationship with Jason over the years. I mean, let's face it, on a daily level, on average, I get 1 or 2 calls a day about solid waste, because I manage the solid waste collection, right? And also the landfill recycling. So I'm always talking about solid waste. I have worked with the company to address issues. The minute I get a call, I would call or text. We text a lot too. I'd call Jason or text him, we talk about it, and I can say right now that when that happened, Jason solved that problem, right? That's a good thing. That's what he's supposed to do. And he did that. Now, that is one thing, but I've been in private industry half my life and the public the other half, right, professional. It's one thing to solve the problem when it occurs, that immediate thing. It's another thing when we can't, as an organization, stop the problem from occurring. Because it keeps occurring. Not only that, maybe it exacerbates. Maybe it occurs more frequently or to a more greater degree. You know, I'm not saying violations or whatever, I'm just saying all the multiple complaints that you can see. Somebody missed me, or there's a fluent on the street, my gosh, what is this? Or it's a hydraulic leak and a fluent leak. Or it's my can is half empty, but the other half is still here. Now, a lot of times when you go out and you find the truth of it, there's loose goods in the container, and that's not supposed to be the case. We're supposed to bag our goods. However, when we're there doing the service provision, for instance, and we empty half that bag, maybe we get there and there's a bag on top, and we empty it, and we notice loose goods on top of other bags in that can. What would we do? What should we do? From private industry, public, whatever industry you're in, what do you do? You empty that can because you're there at point of service delivery. You do the deed. And especially if you're a government going out, I'm using that particular example, right? But for all complaints, right? You've got to solve it while you're there doing it. And when you have dealt with this stuff enough, and you come to a certain point, and you feel like, we just did the comp plan, for instance, in and out of that comp plan, all through that document, there's mentions of things like, that are solid waste issues, right, for our community betterment, solid waste issues, beautification. That stuff is weaved in and out of that document, because we want it that way as a community. And that's where we're heading in the future. And, the reason that governments go to private industry is for something's either too large, too complicated, or too expensive to undertake by the government, right? So we go to business for these solutions. We go to them for innovation, for answers to questions that we don't feel like we can best provide. So that's why, a lot of times solid waste is bid out, because private industry can provide the solid waste service to a better degree than governments can for a lesser cost. I mean, I think we all agree with that. But it comes down to being able to do that in a comprehensive manner. Not just solving problems at point of service, but making sure that those problems don't continue to exist in a level that is unsatisfactory on a general service provision basis. And I think, I'm not trying to speak for the whole group, but I believe that, in my opinion, and I felt like it was the consensus, I could be wrong, but I felt like it was a consensus of our group, that what it was that where we're going, where we're headed, the comp plan we just finished, I mentioned that, where we're going, where we're headed as a community, what we want to make of ourselves, who we want to be, we didn't feel like that we could get there and that we could go there with the carrier that we have right now. And that's the truth. I'm not disparaging the carrier, because being able to provide service provision that they're doing in our community, it's a tough job. It's perhaps one of the toughest. But in the kind of things that we do, it's really hard on people. It's really hard on machines. All the way around. I've said that before. But I just felt like the direction we're going in and the kind of service that we need to provide for our citizens, there's a way to meet that, and I felt like the way to meet that was bringing forth what I did as a staff recommendation council. I realize it isn't definitely it's one of the toughest things you'll ever do in my position, right? Because I'm not born and raised here. So it's tough to bring that forward to a council such as yourselves, who are all local folks, But I felt like it was my responsibility to do it, because as a staff member, I've been dealing with it daily, every day I do, and I felt like that Phil and I assembled a group of people to do this RFP that all brought something to bear important to that meeting, whether it was financial or whether it was experience or whether it was operations that they undertake daily. And I felt like that what we came out of, it was surprising that a lot of our scores were pretty close. They were pretty close. And nobody, to my memory, nobody gave our carrier a failed point scale. They didn't. Nobody gave them a failure. You saw some C's in there, for sure, but nobody failed the carrier. It's just that what we felt like we were going to be able to get with our recommendation to you is what this community doesn't want, has demanded. We did surveys. Everybody, how many respondents did we have? Holly, was it near 400? Yeah, we did public surveys. Through the comp plan process, that was with our, I forgot the name of it, Acapulco, I used to call it POCO, our POCO services. Otherwise, through the comp plan, we were out there talking to citizens. We had public meetings. Solid waste was always there, not in the shadows. It was right up there up front. one of the main issues that the citizens talked about, the politicians talked about, right? Everybody talked about. Community leaders that aren't elected, they were there talking about it. I felt like it was our responsibility to do it with an RFP process, not a bid, because it's not just about money. It's about your quality of life. It's about your quality of your service delivery. And I felt like the large voice of the citizenry to me, for all the people I've talked to in the 4 years I've been here, that it was screaming for us to act in a professional manner and to separate ourselves, at least staff, from what, from what can be the emotional side of it, and give a recommendation. Now, we knew going into that, once we gave that recommendation, that staff was one thing and council had another thing to do. And I respect that. I know Phil does in his career. I know Kayla does. And with everybody, we've all talked about it from the perspective that we respect what you have to do, and it could be different than what we had to do. But we have to do what we have to do because you hired us to do it, and the community expects it.
And you guys are the ones that are going to have to deal with the service providers more so than we. We just have to be able to put a service provider out there that has good service, because that's what we were elected to do. Find the best service for the people that we serve. Yeah. So I appreciate having your perspective on that. It's something I haven't had. I didn't ask you much about it, so thank you for answering this question.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Any other comments from council? Councilman Myers?
Yes, sorry, but I'm going to take a different slant on this whole discussion, I think. I'm not meaning to disparage staff or council, but we've left some parts out of this that really concern me. Lisa Smith said early, when she stepped up here, that quite often we in the council and the city staff, what we hear are the complaints, not the positive points. I have had in the last 2 weeks, 10 days, 40 to 50 either emails or calls from local business or citizens, and not a single complaint. Kevin, you throw out, and Holly, the 300 to 400, and I'm not asking you to respond to it right now. You can later if you want to. But it's like that number of complaints is less than 4% of the 9,200 customers. So once again, instead of all the, and I know we're all guilty of it, people out in the audience, that now you want to compliment them and everything, and we never do it because we never have time. So all we hear are the complaints. Along that line, I want to tell you something else, because I went into this. This is my 13th year on the council out of the last 15. And why? Because I believe in Ottumwa also. And one of the things I did for the first 12 years on the council is join the Chamber Redcoats and go to every ribbon cutting open house and thank the business or the company that was willing to invest in Ottumwa. One of my concerns about having done that, I always thought, and these are just my opinion by the way, but I often thought, we fall down because economic development, which we always cry, we need more economic development, but our economic development group, I'd always ask, do you go back to our local businesses? Do you talk to them about, are there things we can do to help with retention of businesses? And in my own personal opinion, we fall down in that area. But we do try to encourage business here along that line. So I went into this, and by the way, running for office, probably thinking about it a year and a half ago, I was already aware that Bridgeview Sanitation was in trouble through conversations and so forth. This time, then I wanted to make sure they had a fair shake. And by the way, I asked Keith, one of the owners, I said, by the way, when you started Bridge City Sanitation, was that in connection to, at the time, the theme of Ottumwa was City of Bridges? And he said, yes, it definitely was. We wanted to be a part of it, and that impressed me. So moving along with this idea earlier, and I get a little concerned with staff sometimes, even though it's a good staff. In the 10 years that Bridge City, 9.5, that they've been serving us, this city has gone through at least 3 city administrators, a couple of finance directors, other staff, just continual turnaround. So then when Mr. Flanagan talks about having this formal types of sit down with what's going on? Gee, no, we haven't done that. So I say, we, the city, have not done our due diligence. We're just as at fault for Bridge City not being able to do things because we have not taken the time to develop that formal sit down where we would talk about those things and hold them to it. So the other things that disappoint me, I'm supposed to be up here and support the city and our position, and yet Mr. Lewis said to me twice, the figures that they gave out, Bob, in the June meeting, they weren't correct. I came back to the city, I say, so they don't think our figures are right. Well, as Mr. Rath mentioned, you know, we do best practices. Well, best practices are, after Mr. Lewis pointed out that those figures weren't correct, lo and behold, the spreadsheet that we were using, that we were saying was correct, was modified, and maybe it was just the administrative fees were pulled out. But the fact is, here we were once again taking a position, and maybe we weren't completely ready. So, and the other thing I want to pick a little bit on is the Make Ottumwa Shine group, which is a fantastic group. I try to get involved with them. But I'm thinking at least 3 of the other council belong to it. Guess where the complaints came to? I didn't hear complaints about the problems with Bridge City Sanitation, and I didn't get them back from council members, but we do have to be careful that when we get complaints, are they from the same person all the time? Are they less than 4%, or do they represent the community? Again, I wanted to thank the people that are here and all the businesses and citizens who spoke in support of Bridge City, and that's it.
Thank you.
Councilman Stevens, you're the only one who hasn't spoken. You want to make any comments?
Yeah, it's, the question was asked on your pay scale. Do you care to answer it more thoroughly? You said you paid the standard in the industry, he gave dollar figures. Do you care to answer that more clearly?
So, company-wide, we have, and again, if you break, there's different ways of interpreting pay scale, hourly, salary. Generally, we pay our drivers on a salary basis. They generally do not work 40 hours a week. So I can say their pay scale per hour that they work is in the mid-20s. We have company-wide, just a range of salary because they're all different. Company-wide, I have to be careful because everybody's at a different pay scale, and I don't want to cause employees coming forward and saying, hey, so-and-so might be getting higher wage. So that pay scale right there on an hourly basis, I can say for our drivers and our throwers are in between $10 and $15 an hour for the recycle throwers.
Nothing below 10.
Nothing below 10. We don't start below 10.
You mentioned the truck drivers are salaried, and that brings up another question. I was informed that the truck drivers want to get done quick, but the people throwing the garbage in the truck want to string it out because they get paid more. Consequently, when they go to the recycling center, they're late if they string it out. The truck drivers aren't happy about that. They string the time out. The recycling center has to keep staff on longer, and it costs the city money. Is that true, or is that not true? Or do you know?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Bridge City. But I will let you answer that. That would be.
So I guess as far as keeping staff late, I don't know that, but it's an inherent operational system related to exactly what you're talking about, salary drivers, hourly employees, because they don't mesh properly. So but that is a systematic internal structure that we want to deal with. It also just goes to the new RFP as far as starting at 6 a.m. That's going to get our trucks later to the recycle center than what they are now. So that might even cause more problems related to a timing issue on that factor. But we do have plans, like I said, related to wages, systematic internal procedures as far as paying our drivers and making them accountable for a minimum number of hours to get the job done in the required time. So I'm not aware of that systematic procedure making the recycle center stay late with their staff. That we haven't, that I know of, been addressed with that issue.
Janice, has that been an issue?
Well, Keith's right, when they start at 6, the end result's gonna be the same. But yes, the later the trucks come in, the longer we have to keep our supreme staffing people there.
So could you adjust your hours to fit that better or not?
We could have our supreme staffing people come in later, which we'll probably have to do when they go to a 6 o'clock start.
We've been discussing a couple of different ways of doing it.
Okay. And Bob's statement, Bob, as far as I'm concerned, you were correct. I don't think the city has done their job in meeting with Ridgeview. I sat in on one meeting, and it's been probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's been quite a while back, and that's the only one that I know of or I had the opportunity to sit in on. The call center, Tony, am I understanding that right? That's going to be in Des Moines or somewhere else? It will not be here?
Well, if it's like you're calling here, you'll be, the Des Moines call center will be there, it'll be fully staffed, but people do nothing to answer the calls. It'll be a local number they call, and it'll go to our call center.
It's in Des Moines, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I guess I've heard all kinds of things, and I appreciate you folks stepping up here tonight and talking about the service and so forth. But I'll tell you, I'm someone who speaks what I think. And I appreciate your comments, but someone said they done a good job. I'm going to have to get on you guys. In my situation, I'm retired. I don't know whether that's why I get a bunch of these phone calls or not, but I can tell you in the last 2 years, I've got a lot of phone calls on this, and I take every one of them and I go find out if that person's telling the truth or not. Here are some of the things that happened. I discussed them with Jason. I had a call from a lady on the south side. She said they didn't pick up all the garbage in my block. And I didn't know whether to believe her or not. So I went over there, and sure enough, it wasn't picked up. So I called the office. The lady on the phone told me, she said, well, it started raining, so the guys went home. And I said, well, don't they have raincoats? Well, they went home because it was raining. And I said, well, ma'am, I could understand that if there was lightning. I could understand that. But it wasn't that much of a rain. I said, when do you figure on picking this up? And she says, well, I'll get with my supervisor. He'll either get it tomorrow or we'll get it on next week's pickup. And I said, no, that's not acceptable. It's got to be picked up. They did go get it the next day. But just to be aware, when you say good service, that's not that. This happened in this certain area more than once. Trash cans left in the middle of the driveway when they were picked up on the grass area and then deposited back in the middle of the driveway. So when they drove up the street to get in their driveway, they had to get out and move the trash can. I've got numerous complaints on that. I am in favor, you talked about a 5-year strategic plan. I don't like this 5-year stuff. I think the plan needs to be current and immediate. And the review, I believe we should review every year at least. And if there's complaints on whoever it is, they should be addressed immediately, not on a 1-year review. I think a review annually is what needs to be done, in my opinion. I've had numerous calls about hydraulic leaks out of the trucks. And I followed one just the other day on Rochester, East Rochester. A string of oil way down through there. It would come down Maryland Road by the school. And that's been called in several times, not this one, but over the 2-year period, that's been called in several times. Leaking juice out of the back of the truck. That happened in my neighborhood. It smelled terrible. I know it's happened several times because the seals weren't right. They finally evidently got them fixed because I haven't heard that for a while. The cleanliness of the trucks, they don't appear very good. And I know the nature of the beast, they can't be shiny like this one is out here because that's not going to last long. But they can be cleaner. The smell where they store the trucks in the building, the neighbors got to calling. And I got several calls, and I think some of the other council people got calls too. The smell in that neighborhood was terrible. And I think maybe we finally got that solved, or either that or the cooler weather took care of it. But you can't say we've done a good job. So if our bridge city is picked, I expect annual reviews, I expect better service, all of these things to be addressed. And I understand what you folks are saying going out of town. I don't like it either. I don't like it one little bit. But if you look at John Deere, where does their money go? Corporate's in Moline. JBS goes elsewhere. Everybody's goes elsewhere. That's not uncommon. So I guess I'm done. And I apologize for being rough, but you need to know those things. I have nothing against any of you at all, but the service hasn't been what it should be. And I think you guys realize that. I'm wondering if your supervisor's on top of stuff. I'm wondering if you guys know what's going on out there. Somehow you're missing the boat, but that's my take on it.
Okay, we've had a lot of discussion, a lot of questions. Is there any last comments? Because at this point, I'd like to move to item number 2 on the agenda. And council can tell me if they're ready to, and I think at this point, Chris, would you read item number 2?
Item tabled from meeting number 28 held on 9/15/2020. Resolution number 205/2020 accepting the proposal from Sparta Waste Services of Urbandale, Iowa for the collection of non-commercial trash, recyclables, bulky items, and yard waste within the city of Ottumwa, Iowa beginning July 4th, 2021. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 205/2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any other comments?
One more. Is there anything that can be put in this contract that if whoever doesn't perform to our satisfaction can be terminated?
Yes, we feel like that we like have, we're gonna have discussions with whoever the carrier is, but we're looking at 3, 6, and 9-year reviews with teeth, yes, with cure.
I'm not in favor of 3, 6, and 9 years. I want them every year.
We could do year 1, year 3, year 6, and year 9. It's 1 year, for a carrier to go through on a 10-year contract and to have an unsurety such as that, to know that, every year, possibly, that's gonna impede the service.
Yeah, excuse me, but I think the point is, that could be open for discussions.
Yes.
Skip, because I would agree on the 3, 6, 9. You say no, but the council as a whole would make that decision.
And I think there is a provision for regular review of the contract, which was inserted into this new RFP and the new contract, so
Yeah.
that can be addressed.
Certainly could. I'm just suggesting it might be untenable for a contract, but certainly that would be up to council decision.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Ready to vote? Okay, take your vote.
For point of clarification, obviously I know what a yes vote means. What does a no vote mean? Does that keep the current carrier, or does that just mean this resolution fails and we still have to vote on the carrier?
This resolution would fail if there's a no vote, and we'd have to have a new resolution to propose a different carrier.
Excuse me, but how could that be? The point was to listen to the two, and staff's recommendation is to go to Sparta. If we vote no, then it doesn't automatically go to
No,
this?
it doesn't automatically go.
You could also reject both bids and rebid,
Yes.
or set our new request for proposals. It's not an automatic, it would take an affirmative action to award it to Bridge City Sanitation.
Okay,
So a no vote, does what again?
Well, a no vote would vote against the current resolution that was tabled at the 9/15 meeting, which that resolution is awarding the contract to Sparta based off of the prior staff recommendation. So,
Mayor, I would make a motion for an
There's
amendment.
already a motion on the floor, we gotta take care of it first. If you wanna amend it, you can amend it. But there's already a motion on the floor to pass and adopt resolution 205-2020, May 2nd, so that's,
So I
we can
can't
vote it down, we can vote it up, and then you can go from there.
If we vote it down, then Phil, where's it go?
well, then the council would decide what they want to do next. Either award it to Bridge City Sanitation, make any changes to the resolution and award it to Sparta, or reject all and resubmit for new RFPs.
But if we say, give it to Bridge City, it still has to go on a council vote, correct?
Correct, yeah, so the only thing that's in front of you right now is that original resolution from the 9/15 meeting, which was to award the contract to Sparta. An affirmative vote would carry that through and award the next contract to Sparta. I believe, is there still contractual language that would have to come back to council for verification?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that would just be saying we're gonna move forward with Sparta and develop that contract, probably with provisions that were outlined by council at this meeting. A no vote essentially just says you don't like the resolution as drafted, and then the council could decide where to go from there. It does not automatically give it to Bridge City. It does not say that Sparta could not have it. It just saying the resolution in its form would not be approved.
Thank you.
So are you clear and ready to vote? Okay, resolution to pass and adopt resolution 205-220. Recommendation is to give it to proposal from Sparta. Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
No.
Councilmember Byrd?
No.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Okay, motion fails.
Thank you.
Now, if there's any other action,
Now, would it be appropriate to make an amendment?
you can make a motion.
I would make a motion that we offer the contract with modifications to Bridge City Sanitation.
The point of order, that is not on the agenda for tonight. That would have to go to the next meeting. The only thing that was on the agenda was this conversation, the question and answer, and that resolution from the prior meeting.
Staff can prepare a resolution for the October 6th meeting. Is there any other public?
Sir.
Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burt?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Anybody else gonna talk? You're gonna leave me the name.